Hey guys, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. I have another wonderful Christmas DIY for you. Hope you enjoy these ideas. Let's get on with these projects. For the first DIY, this is a simple idea. It's just a very repetitive process. I'm taking two of these plastic candy canes from Dollar Tree. I believe they do have them out this year. I picked mine up last year. Didn't quite do anything with them at that time. I went ahead and also picked up some drop cloth. This I got from Lowe's, but you can pick up drop cloths from Walmart as well. So the first thing I did was to cut strips. Now, I don't recall how many strips it took. I believe it took like maybe 2 strips or 1.5 strips because they are rather long. But I went and cut as many as I thought I needed, but I actually overcut, which worked out just fine because I am making 2 candy canes. So as you can see, these drop cloth strips are very frayed, and that's fine. It lends well to the look, the overall look I'm going for, that farmhouse rustic look. You do have to trim off a lot of those frayed edges because they got to be a little too crazy and stringy, so just trim off as needed. So the first thing I did, as you can see here, is just to make sure that you have a clean edge. So you'll want to create your starting point just by hot gluing or adding a small dot of hot glue to the corner. And before actually starting to wrap it, you want to sort of attach the first piece and then overlap the edge so that it has that clean finish. And then continue wrapping until you get to the very end of the candy cane. Just like that, super easy. Again, it's just a very repetitive step, but it goes pretty fast once you get the hang of it and once you have that flow going. So taking the next candy cane, I just repeated that same process. There is really no rhyme or reason to this. You just keep going and overlapping as much or as little as you need to. You just don't want yours to be super end up looking like super thick or bulky. So just make sure that you don't overlap too much in the same area. Again, this is all preference, so just keep doing it as you see fit or as long as it looks good to you. So the next thing I did was to decide on the embellishments I was going to add to this. First thing I did was to attach both of the candy cane pieces. Now, originally I was debating, should I make this a hanging piece? Should I make this like angled different ways? I don't know. You can sort of decide on which way you plan on displaying your candy canes is how you're going to want to plan to attach your pieces together. So essentially, I just wanted to make mine more of a standing piece. Now, if I wanted to choose to use this as a hanging piece, I'm sure I could. At the end of it all, I did end up, making my pieces adhere to where it would hang if I wanted it to. But I didn't create any sort of hanger or anything like that though. So I am just going to use mine strictly as a standing piece. So I took this cute little rustic lace and burlap combination ribbon, and this is from Dollar Tree. They always carry that at that store, so it's very easily available. So I just made a simple bow, just crossing the loops or the ends over each other and then just creating those loops. Very easy bow. And then after I use a piece of the drop cloth to attach both my candy canes together, just make sure that you knot it very securely and tightly, just so that your candy canes don't go anywhere and they're not shifting about. I mean, it's going to be normal for it to sort of move a little bit, but you don't want it to move to the point where they're just like hanging, away from the arrangement. So I did do like a couple double knots. So then I decided on all my embellishments. I decided to add a little color using these dark berries. And again, these were already from my stash, but you can easily find berries, especially now at Dollar Tree, Walmart, any craft store. And then you can embellish yours however you'd like to. If you want to make yours a sort of a different style, different color scheme, make the adjustments as needed that will suit your decor. So I was going more for farmhouse, and I thought that with drop cloth fabric, the neutrals, it looks really nice. And although I do like neutrals, I did want to add like some pops of color here and there, and that's why I decided to go with those dark like berry look. I also took some random pieces of pine stems from a pick and then just cut them apart just to size. And just keep arranging all the pieces, you know, and what I'm doing is just sticking them into the knotted fabric, and you know, anywhere that you're able to sort of stick the ends in, you just, you know, basically stick it into those areas. I don't believe I use any hot glue here, so these aren't permanent at all. I can easily detach them if I wanted to. And again, keep in mind that if you don't hot glue, then there's a possibility that your little picks might fall off if you're not careful. So if you wanted to make yours more permanent, then definitely use a little bit of hot glue. But I just sort of stuck them in here and there, as you can see. And then don't forget to dovetail your edges. And I also use that big white jingle bell. That's an ornament that came from Dollar Tree in the years past. I just pulled it out from my Christmas, you know, decorative or Christmas decor box and decided to use that for this DIY. I removed the existing embellishments that was on it and just kept it plain, and then just used that drop cloth that I knotted the candy canes together, and just use that to attach that big jingle bell to it. And then just continue to fluff out all of your pieces until you have it arranged nicely. And the burlap lace ribbon that I used from Dollar Tree is wired, and that's something that I would highly recommend, is to use a wired ribbon just so that you can arrange your tails nicely. So that was it for the first DIY. Let's move right along. For the second DIY, I am making a garland of sorts, and I am using this strand of wooden stars from the Crafter Square at Dollar Tree. Now, I picked this up last year as well, and I debated on what I should do with this. There's many possibilities. You can definitely disassemble this whole thing just as I'm doing here, and use each of the stars as individual ornaments if you wanted to. You can also use just a few if you wanted to create some type of hanging decor. But ultimately, I decided to just use the entire strand to create this star garland, which is going to be more of a vintage looking garland. So for this garland, I decided to use some music sheets, and these were already in my stash. Now, if you don't have access to actual music sheets, you can easily download some, I believe, from different websites or things like that, and, you know, print your own. But I have these from some thrift hauls that I've done in the past. And the first thing I did was to trace out all of my stars, get as much of the music notes in within each of the stars. So just being very strategic about how I placed the stars over the top of these sheets. You know, it's just to keep in mind that's what's going to show up on your star. So then I went ahead and cut up all of my stars, and then you'll see that I will distress these a bit and make them more antique looking, since this is going to be more of a vintage style. So just repeat the steps and cut all your stars out first. And we're essentially going to glue these on to the wooden stars. So I like to use glue stick because it's so much easier than just using Mod Podge, and you don't have the problem of like the rippling or the bubbling when you're using a glue stick. So it's just perfect for this type of project. So as you can see, I'm just sort of placing all of my stars on top, just getting a visual of how everything is going to look. And then once I have that all figured out, then that's when it's time to glue all my pieces together. I also use my brayer, which is this tool on the right side, to sort of help smooth out the paper, making sure that I have good contact between the paper and the wood cutout. You can also use like a credit card if you wanted to just sort of smooth out the edges, or use your fingers, whatever works for you. Then taking my sanding sponge, I just went ahead and roughed it up a bit, and also sanded down the edges, just making sure that I remove any of the excess paper or the overhang, just for that clean, distressed finish. And then I use the paper towel, as you see, just wiping off all the dust. Then I have this walnut ink that I got from Joann's, and this is a perfect item to have when you're distressing your pieces. It's a liquid spray, so I can have easily used like a ink pad, because I've done that many times, just to sort of distress the edges. I could also use decrepit dust, but I wanted to give this one a go since I already had this one in my stash, and you can find this at Joann's. I'm sure you can find it at like any craft store. But I used to use this a lot when I used to do a lot of paper crafting back in my days. But then when I came across it, I was like, ooh, this is a perfect time to use this, because originally, I mean, the idea is that you can spray this directly onto your piece and you have like little splotchy areas. But I was a little bit worried because it does come out rather concentrated and you'll have really dark spots. And I didn't want the stars to be overpowered like big spots of brown. So what I did was to use a paper towel and sprayed it onto the paper towel, and then dabbed it onto the edges, and just I had more control by doing it that way. Now, as you can see, when I sprayed this bottle brush tree, you could see the little spotty parts. Obviously, that's how it comes out in the bottle. So that's essentially how it would look had I sprayed it directly onto the paper. Now, I didn't want to run the risk of, again, making my paper look too dark and too brown, and that's why I opted to use a paper towel instead. But here, I was kind of using the same process by doing the paper towel step and then rubbing it onto the tree. But I was finding that it wasn't giving me the effect that I was looking for. These trees are really white, as you can tell. They look too new and too much of a contrast with my stars, because I wanted to make this more vintage and rustic. So I decided to ditch the paper towel spraying and just started to spray that directly onto the tree. And then I had better coverage as far as, getting this to look darker and more brown. So I was really happy with that choice, just by directly spraying that walnut ink onto these bottle brush trees. As you can see, they're already looking vintage, and I really like that look. It just ties in better as opposed to if I had left it white. So when you lift up the trees and look at it from different angles, sometimes, the ink doesn't penetrate through different areas. So you just have to keep repeating until you have, sort of like an even coverage. But you're not going for perfection here. You just want them to look aged in different areas, but you also don't want like big spots or areas of just white. You want to tie everything in together. So once that was done, you can also speed up the drying using a heat tool for that one, or just put it aside and wait for that to dry. But I moved on to my next step, and the next step was to assemble all of my pieces to this piece of drop cloth. So as I did with the first DIY, I used these long strips of drop cloth. This was some extras that I had, and I decided to use this as my garland. Now, I could have used like a big piece of jute twine or rope. You can also use ribbon, like a wide ribbon, but I decided to go with the drop cloth because I do like that look. It's really nice and rustic and farmhousey to me, and again, with a neutral color, it just looks really good to me. So this would be perfect if you're going for more neutral Christmas decor, or just if you like the look of like sort of the vintage vibe. So here I'm just placing all my pieces, trying to gauge how I wanted everything to look. And I essentially alternated between the taller and the shorter trees, making sure that you skip, over each one. Basically what I'm trying to say is, like, as you see here, you know, you have a star, then you have a small tree, star, big tree, star, small tree, so on and so forth. So that's sort of the look that I was going for, because I do like to alternate my pieces like that. And then I'm also cutting out some felt. This is just some scrap felt that I had on hand, and this is what I'm going to use to help attach my stars to the piece of drop cloth. So in the back, where I start to hot glue my star to the drop cloth, you know, because you have such a thick piece of fabric, it's a smart idea to use some piece of scrap felt or fabric, anything that you have that you can sort of reinforce the back side. Just as you see here, I'm just adding hot glue to the drop cloth and attaching that to the star, and then using my piece of felt to attach that to the both the fabric and the star. So hopefully this makes sense to you, but that's just my way of making sure that everything is attached nicely together, because with the bunched up fabric, it might not hold as well, and you might have like the gather sort of unfolding and then like giving you sort of like a weird hanging look. So if the fabric was more thinner and just one piece that goes across with no gathering on it, then it would have probably been sufficient just to hot glue that directly onto the star with no additional need for the felt. But because the fabric is gathered and you have more of a bunched up look, it's highly recommendable to use a piece of fabric just to hot glue everything together, just for that extra security. So then I'm just going to keep repeating that until I get to the end of the garland. And I'm starting with the stars. I'm going to do the trees later after this step is done. Now that all the stars have been attached, I am going to do the same thing using some hot glue to attach my bottle brush trees to this piece of fabric. And I'm just using some hot glue to the back of each of the tops of the tree, and then gluing that over to the drop cloth. Now I felt like it needed a little something more, and again, although I like the neutral color, I also felt like it needed some red or a pop of color somewhere. So I decided to go with more of a subtle look by using this baker's twine. It's a red and white baker's twine, and just strung on some gold jingle bells, and just creating that knot, and then double knotting the top and using that knot at the top to hot glue to the top of the star. And that's going to add just a touch of embellishment as well as a touch of color using that red twine. And with the addition of that bell, I think it looks perfect. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below if you would have added the bell or if you would have done it differently. So there's different ways that you can style this garland. Keep in mind this is made using a drop cloth, so that is essentially a fabric. So with the weight that's been placed on here, although they are on the lighter side, such as the wooden stars and the trees, if you are using a fabric backing, such as a drop cloth, the tendency for this to sort of fall over when you're trying to hang it against a wall or a mantle. It's highly probable just because you do have that weight of the star and you don't necessarily have the structure of something stable in the back. So a way that you can display this is by using a nice greenery wired garland that you can pick up from Walmart, or Dollar Tree even carries them sometimes. But if you want yours to look more substantial, I would probably recommend getting something a little nicer looking from Walmart. So you can also use this to layer over a greenery garland, and that just is another way to display this, just having more stability to it and ability to hang this up in a more structured way. So that's just an idea for you. So that wraps up both of the DIYs I have for you in this video. I love how they both came out. I think they were super easy to follow along. The steps are just very repetitive and redundant, but I think the outcome is fabulous. Let me know if you guys like these ideas and if you would try to recreate it. Let's take a final look. I hope I've inspired you to create your own fun and festive Christmas DIYs. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell. And to all my subscribers and returning viewers, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one.